And we are awaiting the moment of silence to come right now for the victims of the North Tower collapse of the World Trade Center. We want to bring in former Secretary of State and Fox News contributor Mike Pompeo. Secretary, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being with me.
Maria, it's great to be with you this morning on this really somber, special day for America.
Yes, and of course, we will never forget. We are remembering the victims. We are remembering the first responders. We are remembering where America was 21 years ago. And I want to get your sense of how things have changed, as well as your reflections on September 11th, because I just mentioned a moment ago, we feel like we are vulnerable once again with a wide open border, terrorists, people coming through on the terrorist watch list. But of course, it is also a day to remember how strong and courageous our first responders have been and are. They are our heroes.
Amen, Maria. Both of those should be done today. I remember the day, too. It was horrific. We still grieve for the 3,000 Americans that were killed in New York City that day and the attacks in Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C. But I also remember it reminded us all that this is a nation worth fighting for, that the things that we care about, the fundamentals of America, are so special, so exceptional, so unique, that we came together as a nation and we worked. The work we've done for the last 20 years to fight terrorism around the world has saved American lives. The work that our administration did for 4 years reduced that risk here at home to the American people with a safe and stronger southern border. Those things unite the American people. We are the most special nation in the world. The world looks to us. And the American people deserve leaders who are prepared to stand up for those very values, those virtues that make America so unique. And on 9/11, 21 years, when most of the soldiers who enlist today, they show up at the Marine recruiter's office, were either 1 or 2 years old or weren't even alive then, we need to remind them of why they serve, what's so great about our country. And when we do, we will unite this nation in ways that continue to deliver for this country for another 250 years.
Well, Secretary, it was only about a year ago when we have an incredibly botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. We saw what took place as a result of that show of weakness. Our adversaries appear to get stronger, including China. And I also want to point out that it is 10 years ago today that the deadly Benghazi terrorist attack took place as well. And, of course, that included the death of Ambassador to Libya, Christopher Stevens, and 3 other brave Americans who were killed on that day. Your thoughts on the policy that needs to put America first once again?
Maria, I had the privilege to serve as a member of the Benghazi Committee, where we investigated the U.S. government's failures. The fact that for 13 hours, Washington just watched while these amazing men fought to protect American freedom and to keep their fellow Americans safe there in that dangerous place of Benghazi, Libya. We lost 4 Americans that night in the same way we lost 13 Americans in Afghanistan just over a year ago. When I think about now what is the 11th anniversary of the Benghazi attacks and the need to have an America that understands that there are things worth fighting for. We don't always need to send the 82nd Airborne to defend the things that matter to us, but when we are strong and we are capable and we listen to the things that matter and we don't let our military become connected to woke issues where the most important thing is that you have tanks that don't emit carbon. Those are mistakes. These are the things that put American people at risk. I think Americans all across the country can see that. As we sit here today on September 11th, we need to remember that this country is so special, that it is worth fighting for, and that it is possible to achieve if we will have leaders who are prepared to actually articulate the things that bring Americans together.
And look at what has taken place since Afghanistan and the withdrawal there, not just China on the march, but Russia. Secretary, is there something going on in Russia right now that you can address? I understand there are rumors that they shut down Red Square last night. Something important is happening. Communications were out last night. We know that they have continued their assault on Ukraine. Your thoughts on the situation in Russia today?
So, Maria, I've seen that reporting as well. I can't confirm it. What I can say with near certainty is that the Ukrainian forces in Ukraine have made substantial advances over the last handful of days, put real pressure on the Russian military in the streets. I saw data that also suggested that there may have been as many as 50,000 Russian soldiers killed. That's almost the same number we lost over a decade in Vietnam. There is enormous pressure on the Russian leadership. President Zelensky has done a fantastic job of rallying his people. Had the United States done the right work, had we been able to deter Vladimir Putin, or even today deter him from continuing this aggression, we could protect and preserve Europe, and all of the things that are driving cost into the United States we could make go away too. America has the capacity to do it. We just need to be resolved, Maria. You know this.
And we are back with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, also a Fox News contributor. And Secretary, I want to get your take on where we are in terms of foreign policy around Iran. We know that today, September 11th, 21 years later after the worst terrorist attack on our country, and the country of Iran is the largest supporter of terrorism. And yet this administration seems to be this close to getting the U.S. back into an Iran deal, despite all of your efforts, including the Abraham Accords, which brought peace to the Middle East for the first time in a long time. What do you know about the Iran deal and how close it is in fact?
Well, Maria, we know that they desperately want to. The Biden administration desperately wants to get back in this deal to vindicate what President Obama had done. We also know that this would be incredibly dangerous for the United States and for our ally in the region, Israel. It would give hundreds of billions of dollars to the world's largest state sponsor of terror. It would give hundreds of billions of dollars to the very nation that today, Maria, we forget this. Today, the Al-Qaeda leadership, the folks who killed Americans 21 years ago, the operational headquarters for Al-Qaeda today sits inside of Iran. It sits in Tehran. And we're about to give them all this money and resources, none of which will go to the Iranian people, all of which will go to the kleptocrat Islamist regime that is running that country. It would be devastatingly dangerous for Americans and really bad for stability and peace in the Middle East as well.
I mean, just the fact that there is a $1 million bounty on your back, a plot by the Iranians to take you down, the fact that this administration is still even entertaining talking with these terrorists about this negotiation is just, to me, I'm speechless.
Well, Maria, this is obviously personal to me as well, but it is much bigger than that. They've come after other Americans here as well. Our government has not done nearly enough to protect Americans in Syria, in Iraq, and here at home as well. It's the responsibility of our government to protect the American people and to now enter this deal, right, negotiated with the Russians and the Chinese as our partners, and the Iranians now sending drones to the Russians to kill Ukrainians while we're sending money to Ukraine to defend them. I mean, this is just crazy on stilts and truly dangerous. It undermines all the good work we did to build out nations that said we want peace with Israel, whether it was the Emiratis or the Bahrainis or the Sudanese. They understood that peace and prosperity in the Middle East was a good thing for them, and we have now undermined that by giving money to their adversaries. The people that want to destroy their nations are now American partners if we get back into this deal. It would be an enormous mistake. I pray that the administration won't do that.
There is the same group in the Obama administration now in the Biden administration pretty much running the show. There are rumors that Valerie Jarrett will eventually become the chief of staff to the president. This is a rumor in Washington. I don't know if it's true, but they already have people like Anthony Blinken and Susan Rice running things. These were the very people in charge of the Iran deal under the Obama administration.
Yes, Maria, it's largely the same cast of characters. They frankly, I think in part want to get back in this just because we decided to withdraw from it. So this is a vindication, not common sense or good American strategy. It will give them the capacity to build out not only a nuclear weapon, but a nuclear weapons program. And more than that, if they do, we will have nuclear proliferation from other countries in the Middle East as well. The ramifications of getting back into this deal are staggeringly bad. I think both Democrats and Republicans know it. It's why they won't put this in front of Congress or the Senate. They know it would be bad and they would lose that vote. This is something that there's just a handful of folks in the Biden administration that believe in as almost an article of faith. And they're walking away from rational American foreign policy that delivered safety and security for 4 years. For 4 years, Maria, we didn't confront exactly what we're about to confront from the Iranians, and it was because of good choices that we had made.
Secretary, one of the most important policies I believe that you put in place and educated the American people about was around communist China. Under your administration, on your watch, there was a string of indictments of people who were involved in a surveillance campaign. You shut down the embassy in Houston. You talked to us about the happenings in the embassy, the Chinese embassy in San Francisco, and you saw accountability. You ensured that there was accountability for those people who were stealing intellectual property and having these surveillance campaigns on America. What is the state of that situation today? Because obviously Joe Biden has canceled all of that, canceled the China initiative, where we were, in fact, arresting and indicting those people who were involved in those surveillance campaigns. We no longer do that.
Maria, this was an important thing that we did during our 4 years. We understood that the Chinese Communist Party was a threat to America from lots of dimensions, not the least of which was here at home, that they were inside the gates. And so all the work you saw, the counterintelligence and counterespionage work that you were describing, the closure of the consulate in Houston, the work that we did at the consulate in San Francisco, all aimed at protecting American jobs. The Chinese have grown their economy. The Chinese Communist Party has grown its economy on the backs of the American people for decades, and we were the first administration that said, enough. We're going to fix this. We're going to put America at the front and Americans at the front. This administration has withdrawn a lot of that work. I hope that they're actually doing things that I just can't track because it's in a clandestine setting. I hope they are continuing to understand that the Chinese Communist Party continues to want to steal our stuff. They want to undermine the way that we live, and they are putting propaganda into our news feed in ways that have the real risk of taking our republic down. We have to defend against this. It's possible to do. They're not 10 feet tall. We just have to be serious about it, Maria.
Well, I mean, do you think that we will be serious in this upcoming meeting? President Biden is expected to meet Xi Jinping, I believe, at the G20 summit this November. Do you think he'll hold him to account for, I mean, not just the surveillance campaign and all of what we're talking about, but how about the origins of COVID-19 and ensuring that this doesn't happen again? We can't even get into China for an investigation.
Maria, I see no evidence that President Biden will act strongly on behalf of America when he meets with Xi Jinping. We saw the previous meetings the administration's had with them where they raked us over the coals and we didn't respond. We watched them threaten the Speaker of the House when she just wanted to travel to Taiwan, and we did almost nothing. We watched them shut down a pipeline. The Russians shut down a pipeline in the southeast. We did almost nothing. We saw Afghanistan. The world is watching weakness, and when America is weak and won't stand up to Xi Jinping, won't do the things that we need to do to protect America from this Chinese Communist Party threat, the bad guys get a vote. And the vote that they're making is continue to put on pressure, continue to undermine the way we live in America. On 9/11, we should remember that this nation is worth fighting for, that we are wholly capable of doing it, and that Americans will unite around these central ideas of freedom and love of country. And when we are weak, and when we apologize for America, something we never did for 4 years, Maria, when we apologize for America, we undermine every family here at home.
Well, there are very few people on the world stage that have the experience that you do in terms of foreign policy and keeping America safe, from being former Secretary of State to the director of the CIA and, of course, Congressman from Kansas. Secretary, thanks very much for being here this morning. We appreciate your time.
Maria. Thank you, Maria. So long.